I have concerns about modern, particularly Western society. Now, don't get me wrong, in my 40 plus years on this earth, it's been great to see the rate of change and progress and acceptance which society as a whole has shown. Because when I was a young lad, if your sexuality, something you have no control over, was anything other than straight, then that was a problem. Whereas now, if I meet a guy who tells me he's gay, that's absolutely fine, provided he doesn't try to fuck me. However, my concerns are, I think the pendulum has swung too far, because there are so many people online who have very clear, severe mental illnesses, but rather than getting the help they so desperately fucking need, they're promoting themselves. For example, when I was a teenager growing up in the 1990s, if I had said someone who was clearly male, with all the right bits, the meat and two veg, everything, from now on, I'm a woman, you have to use the pronouns she and her, and I'm demanding access to women's spaces and sports. Or alternatively, if I said, I'm not a man or a woman, I'm both and neither, and this can change on an hourly basis. What would have happened is the men in white coats would have put a wooden spoon in my mouth and plugged my head into the nearest pylon. And if that didn't have the desired effect, my family would be condemned to a life of shame, because essentially I'd be the mad child that lived in the attic. Whereas now, everything's stunning and brave. To illustrate how things have changed, I've got two video clips, both taken from the Twitter account The Libs of TikTok. And in this first one, I am baffled by the mental gymnastics required just to maintain this person's delusion.
The thing that's complicated about my whole gender situation, and I feel like there are other non-binary people who deal with this too, is the fact that the way I understand my gender and the way that I want other people to understand my gender are two wildly different things. Because I, and certain people that I've talked to about this, understand the nuances and complicated relationships that I have with womanhood, so those are included when we think of me as a woman or say she, her. Those weird relationships are still understood. But almost everyone else, they don't have that, so they don't get to call me those things. To almost everyone else in real life, I am not a woman and I use they, them. But then because I will call myself a woman or use she, her, understanding the nuances of it all, I feel guilty when I feel bad about getting misgendered by people who should be using they, them and not thinking of me as a woman. I mean, they're not wrong, except they don't know they're not wrong. They've been told I'm non-binary and I use they, them, so why are they still thinking of me as a woman? I'm allowed.
We'll brush aside the almost crippling narcissism that seems to accompany almost every gender non-binary person, and I'll try and get my head around their situation. So that's a woman who admits that she's a woman, but only her and a few select people can use she, her pronouns. Now, I would never refer to myself as he or him, I'd say I, because I'm sane. So this person who says that they are non-binary wants everyone else to use they, them pronouns, even though they and them are being used as a fucking singular, otherwise they are being misgendered, which they aren't. This is very simple. If you're an adult and you were born with a vagina, you're a woman. For me, this is as ridiculous as me saying, well, my name's Daniel, most people call me Dan or Danny. But because you don't understand the nuance of what it is to be me, only I can say Dan, Danny or Daniel. Everyone else, regardless of how well you know me, must refer to me as Brian. In the mornings, in the afternoon, at an unspecified time, I will then be Veronica. And if you don't do that, you're misnaming me, which is as bad as misgendering, because apparently feelings take precedence over reality. And that was the easier of the two clips. The next one is much shorter. But the woman in it can't wait to show the audience that she is full on batshit mental crazy ape bonkers.
My name is Horus and I'm a red-tailed hawk. In our world I do have the body of a hawk, but while fronting I consider myself a Therian, because I am in a human body, but my identity is still a hawk. Not all animal alters will identify this way, and I am in fact the only animal alter in our system who does identify this way. I am doing my best to come to terms with living in a human body.
I've touched on this before. People going on TikTok faking that they have DID. A mental health condition so rare that even the experts can't decide whether or not it even exists. But let's give her the benefit of the doubt and say she got multiple personalities or alters, as it were. Why the fuck is one of them a bird of prey? Because we all alter the way we behave depending on the social situation we find ourselves in. Yet never in my life have I been in a scenario where I thought what I need to do to get through this is tell people I'm a fucking kestrel. If either of those videos had been posted 25, 30 years ago, firstly, not many people would have seen them because the internet hadn't really taken off at that point. But secondly, they would either have been laughed off the face of the planet or locked up for their own protection. And that's the right thing to do, because saying you're not a man or a woman when clearly you are, or claiming that part-time you're a hawk, that's not fucking normal. So finally, we get to the point of this video, because there is a point, and it's this. Almost all of these types of TikToks are being posted by one demographic: young white women. So why is that? Well, I think it's our old friend victimhood culture. In modern society, the more oppressed a person can claim to be, the more victimhood points they can then score. And that's important because being a victim is very fashionable. If you can claim you're a victim, you can do and say things which other people can't. Now, within my lifetime, what was then the LGB movement, those people were horribly treated just because of their sexuality, something they couldn't control. Now, thankfully, that's largely gone away. But I believe because that's not now a problem, we'll have people saying, I'm trans, I'm non-binary, or I've got severe mental illness, that will score them a shitload of victimhood points. But why young white women? Well, because the way schools are being taught, I believe, I think the average young white child at the end of their first term has been told they're responsible for everything bad that's ever happened throughout history. They've caused global warming or climate change, and they're still profiting from slavery. So saying I've got DID scores you a shitload of victimhood points. But why is it young white women and not young white men? Well, in modern society, if you're a confused young white man, you put a dress on and say you're a woman. As ever, thanks for watching.